See, I don't think that's picking anything up. Cool. Turn this on. Oh, big stretch. Big stretch from the little man.
HDMI eARC.
So, as we covered yesterday, Donald Trump came out after Hamas accepted the peace proposal, or at least like the conditions on the peace proposal that they had conceded to prior, and came out and accepted it, at least, like I said, the parts that they had conceded to in the peace proposal prior, and Donald Trump liked it. To my shock, to my surprise, Donald Trump liked that they were accepting of it. And as I tweeted, Donald Trump revealed this statement after. He said, based on the Hamas statement just issued by Hamas, I believe they are ready for a lasting peace. Israel must immediately stop bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly. Right now, it's far too dangerous to do that. We are already in discussions on details to be worked out. This is not about Gaza alone. This is about long-sought peace in the Middle East. Israel, of course, did not stop bombing Gaza. Then Donald Trump went and said, I appreciate that Israel has temporarily stopped the bombing in order to give the hostage release a day later, 18 hours later. What reason do we have to think this isn't just the same thing as a Qatar strike? Trump's response so far, and I don't know. I don't trust Donald Trump. Until this is done, I will not be trusting Donald Trump. But having said that, this is where we're at.
But above all, we would not have actually removed and eradicated that nuclear threat against the state of Israel. It's an historic achievement that will be written down in the annals of history. My dear friend, President Trump, I must thank you, who helped us by sending the B-2 airplanes and his steadfast stand and help, and he bombed the nuclear facilities. And we would not have been able to achieve that. People said it was too good to be true. Well, I'm telling you, it is true. It really is true. And with the help of God, it will help, and it will happen very soon. I have guided the negotiation team under the auspices of Derma to really make this negotiation only last for a few days. And you heard the President Trump, he's not going to suffer any of those sort of delays on the part of Hamas. And we said that the Hamas will be disarmed and there will be a demilitarization of the Gaza Strip. It will be done either by us or in a political way, either in the easy way or in the hard way, but it will be achieved. I would like to thank all the security forces and the IDF. You are heroes. I salute you. I embrace all the bereaved families who sacrifice those who they cherish the most, and all those who suffered so much and sacrificed themselves. And all are wounded. I wish you health. But it is thanks to all of you, and you also, the citizens of the State of Israel, who have been so resilient and stood steadfastly in such tough days, while we were destroying our enemies from Yemen, if we're talking about the Hezbollah and the Hamas, from one victory to the other. Together we are changing the face of the Middle East, and we will continue working in such a way till the eternity of the State of Israel. It says in the Bible that, yes, if we continue thus, then we will be strong and steadfast.
This is interesting. This means that, I mean, it means that this seems like a concession speech. I mean, he said comes across like a victory speech, but that is, yeah, he's trying to deliver a victory speech, as in there is a finality with this. Do you understand? Of course, he has to sell it to the Israeli public like he got all of his wishes across, but this is very, very different than prior instances where he was told it's over, or where he was told like, oh, ceasefire time. In the past, when he was told it's ceasefire time, he was like, oh, it's not. This right here is him basically trying to tell the Israeli public, like, guys, we got all of our wishes across. We did it. Mission accomplished. I'm not gonna lie. This is unique. Amit Segal says this is strange. What bothers me most about the speech is that Netanyahu's absolute certainty that the deal is gonna happen. He said the most astonishing thing to all those who say it's too good to be true. It's true. Netanyahu is essentially not even leaving room for something to go wrong in Cairo, or what's happening here. We know the partner, we know the dynamics of negotiation. What's going on here that Netanyahu was so confident, he's also interested in all his achievements at Hamas' expense, even announced because per Netanyahu's optimism by the end of Sukkot, all hostages will be released. That after Hamas released all the hostages, it will also be disarmed even through military or diplomatic means. Something here seems very strange to me, and I'm not sure it's right for the Israeli Prime Minister to get up and say this is guaranteed even before getting into details of how to implement it. I mean, it's obvious that he is trying to say, like, you know, we're done. And he's not going to say we're done and we lost. He's going to say we're done and we achieved all of our military objectives. What's interesting here is that he's saying we're done rather than saying we're not done. Because in the past, ceasefire deals have been presented and he has turned around and said, we're not done. Of course, there's no real ceasefire. We're going to keep bombing. Don't worry. He even said that after his White House meeting, if you remember. He said that, but he's not saying that right now.
Hamas says it is ready to begin negotiations immediately to finalize all outstanding issues under President Trump's Gaza peace plan. Yesterday, the U.S. designated terrorist group said it would release all of the remaining October 7th hostages. The president spoke from the Oval Office yesterday to thank the countries that helped put the deal together. He said they're very close to achieving peace in the Middle East. Earlier, he had warned that Hamas had until Sunday evening to agree to the deal or face, quote, all hell. Deborah Patta is in East Jerusalem with the very latest. Deborah, good morning.
Good morning. Well, despite a qualified response from Hamas to his peace proposal, President Trump has welcomed it and immediately ordered Israel to stop.
The U.S. official said Trump spoke with Erdogan on Friday before Hamas to respond, asking him to ensure the movement would not reject the plan. The official added, Trump told him, I've done a lot for you, and now I need you to do this for me. You went too far in Gaza, and Israel has lost a lot of global support. Now I will bring all that support back to them. These guys are out of their minds. They think they can just, like, bring the support back to Israel.
Gaza overnight saying Hamas is ready for a lasting peace. This is the closest Israel and Hamas have come to making a deal to end the war since it began nearly 2 years ago.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seek peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that.
Hamas says it is ready to release all the remaining hostages, living and dead, in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, and has agreed to surrender governing power in Gaza. But it wants further negotiations on some of the terms of the proposal and made no mention of laying down its arms, a key demand of the deal. Israelis are daring to hope once more.
I hope this will bring peace for Palestinians, for Israelis, and no more war. The conditions back home.
I really hope that this war will end and we'll start living again.
After nearly 2 years to the day of grinding war, there is at least a reason to celebrate. When news spread that Hamas had conditionally accepted the Trump plan, people took to the streets. The hope is that the bloodshed will soon be over. Overnight, explosions were seen across the Strip, but the Israeli military has reportedly moved to a defensive posture after Donald Trump.
It's so disingenuous too. Oh, they're disingenuously blowing it up. For the record, once again, always have this power, and still does to this day, one phone call. Contrary to what was reported overnight, coordination between Trump and Netanyahu is complete, They spoke before publishing the statement. The Prime Minister was not surprised, says Ynet. I lean towards, yes, these fake risks have been a constant tactic to mask how coordinated they are on everything. And Barack Ravid also helped spread those fake stories in the past as he's doing now. I am still worried. Because yes, Donald Trump does have the capacity to stop Israel with a phone call. And yet Donald Trump has only used that phone call to further scheme with Israel over and over again. But the only difference here is that Benjamin Netanyahu isn't speaking like he's going to continue the bombing campaign, but instead started talking about victory. And that has a finality to it. Just dropped on the negotiations. After negotiations, Israel's agreed to the initial withdrawal line, which we have shown to and share with Hamas. When Hamas confirms the ceasefire will be immediately effective, the hostage and prisoner exchange will begin, and we will create the conditions for the next phase of the withdrawal, which will bring us close to the end of this 3,000-year catastrophe. Thank you for the attention. This matter stay tuned. 3,000 years, by the way. God, these guys are still pretty good. What is the worst case here? Worst case is that this is yet another scheme, and they're faking it, and they're gonna take out the hostages because it's been like somewhat of a political hurdle for Netanyahu and Israel, I guess. And then they're gonna immediately keep bombing and implement the Rafah concentration camp, ethnic cleansing campaign. That's the worst case. I'm not saying that that's gonna happen. You asked me what the worst case scenario is. That's the worst case. Yeah, this is a sitting congressperson, Representative Hank Johnson, who apparently this is some insane Hamas said that it agreed to release all the Israeli hostages, alive or dead, under the terms of President Trump's proposed Gaza peace plan. Representative Hank Johnson says, I am gratified that Hamas has agreed to release the hostages. Hamas is responsible for the ongoing genocide being undertaken by the state of Israel. What? Wait, I'm sorry. You recognize that Israel is doing a genocide, but you also still think it's Hamas's fault that Israel is doing a genocide? Okay, this, Jay Mershon, sometimes you spam links and it gets annoying, but you were right to send this one. You were right to say this is a new thing that you haven't encountered yet. Because I've encountered people who say Israel's not committing a genocide. I've encountered people who say Israel's committing a genocide, but that's actually good. Right? Like, because they deserve it. I have, however, never encountered a person that has said Israel is committing a genocide and it's bad, but it's a genocide because of Hamas. I've only heard other versions of this, like Israel's doing war crimes and a genocide, but it's a good thing because Palestinians deserve it because of Hamas. This guy is saying Israel's committing a genocide and it's bad, but it's because of Hamas that Israel is committing a genocide. I have never heard that before. Someone said you had a podcast with a person like that. Oh my God, you're right. Oh my God, you're right. This is the Ethan Klein position. Oh my God. You're right, you're not wrong. Because it's a disingenuous one that I never even actually thought about it like that. That's true. Low-key, not wrong. And I call on Trump administration to force a stop to that atrocity and to prevent Israel from annexing the West Bank. Progress can be made towards a peace agreement that includes the establishment of a homeland for Palestinians. Wow. Brilliant take. I've never heard the stop hitting yourself. Brilliant take. Stop hitting yourself, but this time it's about genocide. Hamas is responsible for the ongoing genocide by being undertaken by the state of Israel. Is such a wild thing to say. Clintonian triangulation. It's strange because it's such an unusual triangulation. The normal play is to ignore that it's a genocide and give platitudes about the need for aid or whatever. This acknowledges the state of Israel is carrying out the genocide, but then hedges by saying Hamas forced them to do it. Incredible. It's incredible because it just doesn't make sense. Because it's such an insane thing to say. Which is why, like, when Ethan made this exact same claim, we just didn't factor that he was being sincere about the recognition of Israel doing a genocide. Because you can't recognize a state or an entity doing a genocide and then simultaneously say it's the victim's fault. Like, that doesn't make sense at all. Unless you think Israel's doing a genocide and it's a good thing. You know what I mean? It is a totally incoherent thing to state. see this fucking same video that went mega viral? Oh, I did. Yes, I did. Portland ICE agent jumps into a brawl to pepper spray a frog in the. Except, people are laughing about this, but what's crazy about it is like, that literally is is for breathing. He identifies the one area for like air to come in and out of the costume, and then pepper sprays it. Like he's hotboxing the dude, turning it into a gas chamber. It could have killed him. Yeah, not only do they pepper spray the frog costume like the inflator specifically to suffocate the person in the frog costume, but look at this video. I saw this one too. Yeah, she kept saying you're stupid, and then the response was to pepper spray this person like that close to their face, which by the way, these guys know will absolutely have permanent damage. Big tough guy, man. You're a big man, little guy. This one's really bad too in Chicago. What's the purpose there? Like that's just straight up assault. You understand? That's all this is. That's just straight up assault. Like this is the thing that really pisses me off about Americans, because like Americans will look at this and be like, "Whoa, he didn't listen to a lawful order by a cop." Like these are supposed to be human beings and also public servants. Like they're not fucking gods. They don't get to just like beat the shit out of people who hurt their feelings. You don't get to do that. Nobody gets to do that. It's so crazy. Americans will look at that and be like, "Nah, that's valid." ICE agent used tear gas to speed up traffic in Chicago. ICE gassed a 2-year-old because they were mad about the traffic. They are on a terrorist spree. What? ICE deployed tear gas on crowded public street because they were upset being stuck in Chicago traffic. A 2-year-old child required medical care after inhaling the chemical agent. Adults were vomiting on the sidewalk. Local elementary school was forced to lock down for recess due to the presence of agents. People in nearby cars reported that the tear gas caused their ears, nose, and mouth to run after chemicals seeped into vehicles despite windows rolled up. The incident occurred close to Funston Elementary School in the Logan Square neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. What the? Well, I look at this and I feel protected, you know? I look at this and I see our brave law enforcement officers doing a grand old job, you know? These guys get paid with our taxes, by the way. Just remember that, okay? They're public servants, supposedly doing all this for our best interest.
President Trump is ordering a review of Oregon's federal funding as Antifa chaos continues in Portland.
Meanwhile, radical agitators have spent nearly 100 nights straight laying siege outside the city's ICE facility.
Shanley Painter is here with all of the details. Shanley.
Hey, good morning. That's right. Trump's announcement coming as the violent anti-ICE clashes persist in Portland since early June. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying this, watch.
President Trump will end the radical left's reign of terror in Portland once and for all. The president has directed Secretary Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other left-wing domestic terrorists. This is not peaceful protesting. This is left-wing anarchy.
ICE's Portland director says the facility is under constant attack with little help from local police because of political directives from city leaders. And the nightly protests have escalated beyond just chants and signs. Bottle rockets are striking ICE buildings, rocks are shattering windows, lasers targeting officers' eyes, and barricades blocking vehicles.
Dog, what you're describing is at most a fucking nuisance. What you're showing, on the other hand, is military gear wearing cops beating the doorknobs off of tax-paying citizens while deploying chemical weapons on them. The disproportionality here is so severe. And what's crazy is that Americans don't realize that. Like, they have no way of looking at the situation and being like, okay, so you're telling me that these guys are throwing like bottles and stuff, and then the cops come in with chemical weapons that are banned in combat and deploying said chemical weapons as a mechanism for crowd control against tax-paying citizens while they got like military gear on? I don't know.
Interesting. That's what Governor Pritzker says is cooperation and keeping people safe.
What's been going on here? What's been going on here, Secretary?
Oh, that's Benny Johnson.
I mean, to go out and do some operations, to pick up some guys with criminal convictions on them, and the city police wouldn't even let us use a restroom.
And you were just blocked by a worker here at the city?
Correct, we need the building here would not allow us to go in and use the restroom at the police station. So as much as these local leaders and governors talk about cooperating and having the backs of our law enforcement officers, this is what we have to put up with every single day. And all we're
No, they literally say they don't want you there, actually. So they're abiding by the wishes of their constituents, and nobody's out here being like, please come to Illinois. As a matter of fact, they've made it clear. They're like, don't come to Illinois. We don't want you here.
doing is getting criminals, terrorists, criminals, and gang members off the streets to make families safe. It's ridiculous.
I mean, is it impeding law enforcement? I mean, this is a real problem for us.
Impeding law enforcement. What, not letting Christy Nome pitch in the police precinct is not impeding law enforcement, dude. These guys are so funny. You are tactically engaging in a kinetic action that is impeding and obstructing my piss. As an honorary member of law enforcement, you are impeding on law enforcement activity. This is criminal misconduct. Please allow me my moment of reprieve. I must tactically disassemble my bowel movements.
Deal with this every single day. They know
Our officers that have to hold their PP every single day. We're so proud of them. We're so proud of them. They're brave big boys. They are brave big boys for being able to hold their PP in without having to go to the nearest precinct. As a matter of fact, they use tactical diapers.
America's got their backs, but what they face here every day is real prosecution.
How do you move your setup so fast and everywhere in every country and stream every day? Because I'm the goat. Thank you for asking. Finally, somebody recognizes all the work we put in around these goddamn parts so you can get all the news that's fit to print.
Christina Coleman, she has the latest on this morning's attack on law enforcement in Illinois. Christina.
Hi, John. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says law enforcement officers were boxed in by 10 cars this morning in Broadview, Illinois, the very same area where anti-ICE crowds have been gathering for days. She said, quote, agents were unable to move their vehicle and exited the car. One of the person rammed the law enforcement vehicle was armed with a semi-automatic weapon. She says law enforcement fired defensive shots at an armed U.S. citizen who drove herself to the hospital to get care for wounds. McLaughlin also said that the armed woman was named in the CBP intelligence bulletin last week for doxing agents and posting online, hey, to all my gang, let's F them up, don't let them take anyone.
Hey, we are a member of a criminal gang. Let us go F those ICE agents up. That's so funny. Come on, man. We like to do gang violence to ICE agents. It's such a stupid
Very
quote.
disturbing. Things got violent outside of the ICE facility in Broadview, Illinois, again early yesterday morning. Take a look at that, with anti-ICE protesters clashing with law enforcement. Approximately 250 anti-ICE protesters gathered there. Federal agents fired pepper balls and tear gas to try and break up the crowd, blocking federal operations. Today, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker put out a statement saying the Trump administration intends to federalize 300 members of the Illinois National Guard in the coming hours. Pritzker said, quote, "This morning, the Trump administration's Department of War gave me an ultimatum.
Bro, everything is Israel now. I just, like, sometimes I think, am I too Israel pilled? Like, is too Israel brain, you know? Or is everything just simply Israel? And I feel like the answer is everything is Israel. Because, like, this whole, like, fake, oh, we have real criminal threats that we have to destroy with, like, the dumbest fake bullshit of all time, permanent victimhood status. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Israel's, like, the purest reactionary form, which is fascism. So it makes sense that the United States of America, that's also gearing towards full-tilt fascism, would behave in a similar fashion.
Troops, or we will. It is absolutely outrageous and un-American to demand a Governorson military.
Like, J.D. Vance literally said, yeah, blood libel when talking about ICE agents. He said it's blood libel to call ICE agents Gestapo. Like, it doesn't get more Israel than that, you know?
Troops within our own borders and against our will. Pritzker maintains that there's no need for military troops on the ground in Illinois, and he says he will not call up the National Guard. Meantime, in Portland, another city with ongoing violence outside of an ICE facility, a fist fight broke out between an ICE supporter and anti-ICE protester. You could see there in that video that that was a conservative influencer who had been arrested by Portland police. Explained to our Bill Malugin what had happened. He has since been released. But there you go. You can see that fist fight between that ICE protester and anti-ICE supporter. There you go. There you see him laid out. That's just some of the ongoing violence there. Now, federal authorities say local politics is impacting police involvement. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, local police has been restricted from responding or cooperating at all with federal authorities, which is completely absurd.
Also last night, Portland police say they arrested two men who refused to get out of the street and engaged in aggressive behavior toward each other during the protest. Again, just some of the ongoing violence in that area.
So what happened there? Is that the journalist? The Tim Pool guy? No, right? The Tim Pool guy was like...
You're getting new reports about a chilling and downright shocking escalation of ICE tactics against the residents of Chicago. In the middle of the night, hundreds of armed federal agents and police, backed up by riot trucks, smoke grenades, and helicopters, breached fences and busted doors in an immigration raid on an entire apartment building on the city's south side. They pulled dozens of residents from their homes and zip ties, including children, some of them without any clothes. They then held some outside for hours and dragged the others into rented vans.
The horrors of what happened to the children is one thing. You also had American citizens, black American citizens, that were drugged out of their homes and detained and put through something that they should not have had to go through. And when we are having a conversation about how customary it is to detain someone, I want people to remember the historic implications of that for black people.
Okay, hold on. Wait, what would be? Wait, let me ask you honestly. What would be the alternative to go in there and say, okay, guys, raise your hand if you are an American citizen, and we're gonna let you out of here. Do you trust people?
What are you saying? Yeah, the alternative is conducting a proper investigation ahead of time, figuring out if there's a criminal there, getting the proper arrest warrant, a judicial warrant, to enter into that individual's home. No one else's home, just that individual's home. That is just the law, by the way. What's the alternative? Following the law? Yes, dumbass. That's the fucking alternative. What the are you talking about? What do you mean? Like, you can't just go, what's the alternative? Not violating the Constitution? Not violating the Fourth Amendment? Yeah. No, that's the bare minimum, actually. Hello? You can't just go, what's next about a egregious violation of the law?
Well, be honest, is that the alternative?
No, yeah, the alternative is for law enforcement to do their job.
Yes, that's what they're doing.
They are detaining the right
And
people.
how do they detect? How do they
Absolutely.
determine that? They have to see the papers.
The alternative is for law enforcement
They have to
act
see the
like a
papers.
scalpel and not like a hatchet.
Brianna, 1 second. When you walk down the street,
Like that dumbass is talking about dragnets. Ask that person about China, and they'll talk about like how devastating this is. Ask that person about Xinjiang, right? The Uyghur genocide. Why was the Chinese intervention in Xinjiang, the autonomous region, unacceptable? At least from my assessment, because these guys will go above and beyond and say they were like, you know, slaughtering Uyghurs by the millions and like eating their organs or whatever. But like as far as mass surveillance and mass detention, that was the problem. It was dragnets portrayed as a counterterrorism initiative. It was literally what the administration is doing. Dragnets and mass surveillance acted on by state mandate as a counterterrorism initiative. That's exactly what the current American government is doing. When they talk about what the Chinese government is doing in Xinjiang, they literally say they were doing a Holocaust there. Okay, they were doing a Holocaust. They were just like killing every single man, woman, and child they could. But then when America is doing similar things, if not identical things, on U.S. soil, they're like, oh well, that's just you know, following lawful orders. Ridiculous.
when you walk down the street and so let's say hypothetically a law enforcement person came up to you and said, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" What are you gonna say?
Well, that's not the question.
No, let me ask you.
No,
If they said that to you, what would you say?
I would say yes.
Okay, and then they said, "I don't believe you. Let me put you
Yeah, but
in
you know
some
the
zip
difference-
Weren't you as a kid at Tiananmen Square? Oh my god.
You know the difference
You
is when
need
they're
to.
going into
We're
a
gonna.
hostile
No, hold on a
situation.
second.
Abby, you're
No, hold on a second.
People are 37 illegal aliens rolling out of hundreds of people.
Listen, I think I'm just playing out the scenario that you just described.
Alright, but the scenario I'm
Hold on.
describing.
Actually,
You
actually, they
described
did.
the scenario
Yes, and
in which
they
you
were
say that
racially
their only choice is to detain someone, make them not free to go, take away their freedom for however long, so that they can prove, not to take your word for it, but to prove that they are citizens. And if that happened to you, walking down the streets of New York, you would probably file a lawsuit, would you not?
Abby, you are completely taking what I said out of context. So I will say it again. When a law enforcement official is going into a situation or an environment in which they know that there are criminal gang members in a confined
All right.
environment in an apartment complex,
We have to go.
and in
but-
hold on, in an apartment complex, how should they differentiate between the two?
Hold on a second. I don't want to
very real situation.
I don't want to.
That happens to black
Just 1 second. Just 1 second.
They
I don't want
you
to
don't have
forget.
Dude, what ICE did in collaboration with other federal law enforcement in the Chicago apartment complex is completely illegal and unjustifiable. I don't understand why these guys have some of the dumbest right wingers. I mean, I think that there's an intelligent right winger in general that you could even have. I don't know why they're doing this in the set of the Food Network for some reason.
I want to forget
Like, what the is going on at CNN?
that we're talking about an apartment building in the middle of the night where people,
Yes, a
many
fine
innocent
location.
people, many innocent people were sleeping in their beds,
100%.
going about their lives. They don't have a, hold on a second. They don't have a choice about who they're.
Yeah, and then in the process they zip tied naked children and arrested an entire building of U.S. citizens so they could post this video to impress 65-year-old MAGA pigs with hearts. Yeah, they hit a Black Hawk, bro. Like, they're making it seem like they were arresting El Chapo, dude. They got the busboy working down the street. The criminal person that they're apprehending in this is like 37 dudes that work for landscaping small businesses and like the bar back at the local eatery. That's what they're doing. Uber Eats delivery drivers. It is the most psychotic yeah, you'd think they're in the Bin Laden compound the way they're moving. did it. You did it, bros. You did it. You arrested the local dishwasher. I can't believe it. You did it for the heinous crime of seeking refuge in the United States of America. Fantastic. And a ton of American citizens were detained in the process and had their stuff thrown around, destroyed in the process. All the doors were destroyed in the compound. There's been so many instances exactly like this. Slumlord wants to offload a property, so they call ICE and say they suspect migrant gangs, traffickers, whatever. ICE comes in, humiliates, detains, intimidates, and robs every tenant until the building clears out. Yep. This is what happened in Aurora, Colorado as well. They were like, oh, Tren Darag was in the building. Meanwhile, it was the dude's like 8th building that had been condemned by the local officials and slumlords, dude. And you can do this because even the American citizens involved that get detained in the process, that live in those buildings, are so poor that no one will defend them. Don't remind me, TYT greatest shame by promoting that. Yeah, maybe they'll talk about this one too. They'll say, oh, Tren Darag was in this building too. Those amassed and armed federal agents backed by a Black Hawk helicopter descend on a Chicago apartment building, handcuff everyone including kids, and then check them all for outstanding warrants and immigration status. It's fucking unbearable. Here's more from that panel with Dip Scott Jennings.
Scene of children being torn from their homes in the middle of the night because of this over militarization of a community, and just to think of the trauma and what that's going to do for the next generations to come.
It's terrible when the children of Tren Darag are having
separated.
children
are
separated
from
from
Republicans because they never had.
violent
But
situations.
I actually
We don't actually know, first of all, we don't know who those children were, but I imagine that there were other children who were not.
I mean, it's a place that I didn't think I was actually going to have.
Incredible. Dude, I think one of the craziest parts about all of this is that people just don't realize that we have normalized some of the most abnormal shit in this country, and every day things get worse. Every day that goes by and people defend this kind of shit, Americans are getting more comfortable with a fascist government taking over. I mean, it already has. I don't know where this goes, man. The ICE stuff is so crazy. It's just so unacceptable. And you do have dipshits out there who are celebrating this, like, hell yeah, baby. My life sucks dick. So I'm glad when I think about like a random person who has even less than I do getting f***ed over, because I'm fearful of that person. I'm fearful that they're brown and therefore scary, horrifying stuff. AOC had a pretty good appearance on Chris Hayes.
Tonight, the federal government is expected to shut down. It'll be the first government shutdown since the last time Donald Trump was president. A new poll by NPR, PBS, and Marist shows that if the government does shut down tonight, which we fully expect, Americans would blame Republicans more than Democrats, with 38% of respondents blaming Republicans, 27% blaming Democrats, and 31% blaming both parties.
We are here in the midst of this destruction of the federal government, the federal safety net, $1 trillion eviscerated from people's health care, their Medicare, their Medicaid in this country, with prices that are skyrocketing and life becoming completely untenable for the American people. We are here to try to be a backstop and to be that backstop, which is what the American people have elected us to do.
So right now there's this sort of back and forth about the
Bro. I know people go AOCIA or whatever but like, can you imagine this being the main spokesperson for the Democratic Party as opposed to Chuck Schumer, and then far more radical figures like AOC being the Chuck Schumer of the Democratic Party, and then the AOCs of the Democratic Party being far more radical, being closer to Zohar Mamdani, closer to Rashida Tlaib. or even beyond that. Like, imagine a world like that, because that would be the competent Democratic Party. That would be a real, true left flank party. Look at the way she's talking around this. Like, stop teasing me. I will never stop teasing you.
Easy tax credits. And there's kind of a strange dynamic that I want to get your sense of, right? Because at one level, negotiating over the ACA tax credits is important. I mean, there are people going to see their premiums go up 15, 20%. Like, huge amounts are going to spike. Republicans don't like these extenders. Democrats do. They think it's good for people. But that's fully in the lane of, like, normal politics. And then at the same time, like, the President of the United States assembled 800 military commanders to say, I want you, you're going to have to go to war against your fellow citizens in American cities. I think people are having a little bit of a hard time of, like, we're going to have a fight on the shutdown about the tax credits, but not about the president wants to declare war on Americans, even though I understand those two are conceptually distinct. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, Chris, but, you know, I think that's something...
I mean, there's so much that the Democrats could wage war against the Republicans over. That's not a bad idea as well. That's not a bad idea to highlight as well. Like, there's so much. Doge cuts, tax cuts to the wealthy, and then trying to not add to the deficit as much by basically cutting $800 billion in healthcare, something that they're fighting for. Mass kidnappings taking place in every American city. ICE now having more power than they ever have had at any point since its inception in 2001 or 2001, right? What year did the Department of Homeland Security get invented? It was right after 9/11, right? 2002. People forget. They think ICE has been around.
This is not a fight over tax credits. This is a fight over your ability to go to a pharmacy.
Why is the left letting this happening? This is incredibly frustrating. Why is the left not pushing back? What are you talking about? We're literally watching a prominent Democrat push back. This is it. Why do you think the government shut down, Chatter?
Afford your insulin. We're not talking about just 15 or 20% increases in people's premiums. Tomorrow, healthcare companies, and today, healthcare companies are finalizing the premiums that everyday Americans are going to be paying. And we are talking about a doubling of monthly healthcare premiums, not even including your deductible, in terms of what people are going to be paying next year because of $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that were put together earlier this year. And I don't know about anybody else, but I do not think that this is just about a tax break or a small tax extender. This is about fighting not just on tax breaks, community health centers, and ensuring that we have a stability of the American healthcare system.
Yeah, it's about protecting rural hospitals. Rural hospitals overwhelmingly rely on Medicaid for funding. Nursing homes as well overwhelmingly rely on Medicaid for funding because Medicare coverage lapses beyond nursing homes. For like long-term care, nursing home care, you need Medicaid as well. And it's crazy to me that that's the base of support for MAGA. This is, unironically, the Democrats fighting against the MAGA party at the behest of the MAGA base. What are we doing? That's what's so crazy about it. I don't know anyone who acts like you, cares about the future of this country, no matter how much it seems like everyday citizens don't. No matter how much everyday citizens act out against people like myself or caring about the future of this country, regardless of how hostile the average American is to my position. Okay, this is the last one. This is the local Turkish delight. Bro, everything that I had was bomb, except for the hummus. The hummus was ass.
And when Republicans use a legislative mechanism to gut the American healthcare system, we have to use a legislative mechanism in order to restore it and to fight for it. Because at the end of the day, you know, people may talk about tax credits this and tax credits that. What they do understand is when you have insulin and you can't afford it. What they do understand is when your kid has chemotherapy or your spouse gets diagnosed with cancer and you go into a hospital and it doesn't get covered. And you have to choose life and death, what this is about. Now that does not mean that we ignore the abhorrent violation of law and norms and what is happening with our U.S. cities, but we have a broad spectrum of ways and places that we can fight, including our governors, our attorney generals, and our state and municipal leaders, as you just saw.
So I just want to make sure I understand this just from your perspective here. So and I think this is generally the view of congressional leadership as well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if there was bipartisan compromise, right? If everyone came together, the leaders of the parties, the president said, yes, these 5 things, we're going to make sure that these premium supports keep going, we're going to fund community health centers, whatever the sort of asks on appropriation around people's affordable health care. If those were met, Democrats would be a yes. Like, that is the box that this is happening in, as opposed to we can't fund a Department of Justice that prosecutes political enemies or whatever else might be out there.
Well, let me tell you, Chris, the mechanism by which that deal is locked is not just about agreeing in concept on tax credits. We need to do it with no tricks, no games, and no backdoors, which includes rescissions. And when we talk about rescissions, that is the mechanism that the federal government is using to gut and destroy rule of law across the board. So we are fighting to ensure that healthcare is protected.
Saying the MAGA base is going to be the ones most impacted by defunding healthcare is a bit disingenuous. No, a lot of the wealthy individuals in this country are MAGA because they voted for their capital. Saying this is the son of a retired self-made multimillionaire, there's also the son of an immigrant irony. No, because while there are more wealthy people that vote for the Republican Party as opposed to the Democratic Party, there are still a ton more poor people in this country than there are wealthy people in this country, and that means that the overwhelming majority of the base of support for both parties is always going to be poor people. And if you're living in a red state, you already have a lot of services that have been crippled by austerity. So you're already in a shittier position overall. The real divide in this country oftentimes is not about like blue states versus red states. It's about rural areas versus urban environments. Okay, if you live in an urban area, you're more more than likely to vote Democrat. If you live in a rural area, regardless of whichever state you're in, you're probably voting Republican. And ironically enough, throw the 1% aside. They vote, they vote for either party. They majority vote for the Republicans. Who cares? But when you look at the actual base of support for the Republican Party, that comes from rural areas. And those people are the ones that are getting f***ed over the most. So when they no longer have Medicaid, when rural Medicaid recipients no longer have that Medicaid, they can't go to the hospital and pay for their health care. Then that hospital has to go bankrupt and close. So this quite literally hurts Republicans in rural areas more than anybody else. And that is the base of support. That is at the heart of the Republican Party's power. It's so crazy. It's ignorance that makes people vote against their best interests. It's a lack of faith in the opposition party. So I do still blame the Democrats for that make people vote against their best interests. It's racism that makes people vote against their best interests. There are a million different reasons. But right now, the Democrats, as it stands, are the only game in town that is actively trying to defend the MAGA base of support from the MAGA party. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people's opinions are. It doesn't matter what people's politics are. That is the reality. The Republican Party has taken the initiative to hurt its own base. It's obviously not just MAGA Republicans, it's obviously Democrats as well. It's just like the working class Americans. But make no mistake, there is a sad irony to the situation.
Every American. But the way that we do that also means that the only way that you guarantee that is by forcing them to adhere to the rule of law, which means eliminating the rescission loopholes that they put in the CR earlier this year, which the Senate unfortunately had caved on then, and we're ensuring that doesn't happen now.
Yeah, the quick 10-second version for people that haven't followed this is that, you need 60 votes to get the filibuster to appropriate funds for the government, but they can pass a rescission, which is to claw back some of the money already agreed to by 50 votes. So they have this kind of like cake and eat it too model where it's like, oh yeah, we'll come together, we'll pass a bipartisan appropriations bill, and then when we've done that, then we'll go and get rid of the stuff we don't like, which just seems like an insane way to negotiate.
Something important to consider is that taking away 20% of ACA tax credits from someone can take 10x that person's insurance spending. Some people's subsidies cover enough that they pay $20 a month, but they would end up paying over $200 with reduced subsidy. That person isn't getting chemo because they died not knowing that they had cancer because they don't go to the doctor. It's just pure evil, man. I think paywalling healthcare is one of the most evil things that this administration has actively defended, and it's incredible to me that so many more Americans are not always mad about this
Let me ask you this. There are some people I've seen who have the following theory of why Senate Democrats have not cut a deal where they give 8 votes and move along. And that is that Chuck Schumer is worried about a primary challenge from you and is worried about the politics to his left flank. And so because of that, worried about a primary challenge, he's going to shut down the government. Ergo, it is AOC's fault that the government's shutting down, or that you're somehow the kind of fulcrum of this. And I want to just ask you straight up, like, are you planning to primary challenge him? Do you think that's why he's doing this?
This is...
By the way, that is true. I hate to admit that the Republicans are right on that a little bit. There is no world in which Chuck Schumer would actually do the right thing ever unless he was reasonably worried about maintaining his office. Everybody hates him, and I'm sure a part of that pressure does come from a much better alternative that will primary him into fucking oblivion. That's it. I mean, that's one part of it. That's one part of the pressure that's causing Chuck Schumer to finally do any job, really. Do a job. I cannot believe that it took 9 months of people demanding he retire and an active primary threat from a much more nationally popular politician for Chuck Schumer to finally do the right thing for once. And before you say Chris Hayes is a dick for asking this question, I don't think so. I think it's a good question for AOC to answer, and I think her answer was pretty good. Like, her answer could have been more aggressive towards Chuck Schumer, to be like, yeah, there is some truth to that. It's not me. I'm simply a way for people to voice their frustrations with the leadership of the party. You see the polls. 62% of Democrats want Hakeem Jeffries to be replaced as well. Obviously, we have a crisis of good leadership in the party. It's not a secret that I was undermined when I was running for head of oversight. Very obvious that this party needs fresh, new talent. There's a lot of demand. There's a lot of appetite for more radical and bold policy fighters. And the old guard has shown time and time again that they cannot meet the moment. If you were running for Chuck Schumer's seat, that's something you would say. And then you would turn around and say, however, now is not the time for primary conversations, and Chuck Schumer has my full confidence in this moment as long as he continues to stand strong against the Trump administration. Because obviously, that is what matters most. We want to make sure that Americans can continue receiving their health care. They're already suffering, health care is already costly enough as it is, and we should be moving beyond this system. We should be moving beyond to a much more equitable system, one that exists in virtually every other country. Much poorer nations than ours have been able to build and design a socialized healthcare system. We can do it here as well, but in the interim, right now, Chuck Schumer and myself and every other Democrat that stands strong are there for the American population. We are doing this because we want the Republicans to give us assurances to save healthcare.
So not about me in this moment. This is about people being able to insure their children. And I will say, because I saw some senators speculating about this, and I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shut down, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open, and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly. Because what I'm not going to do is tolerate...
Okay, Chris, inappropriate, just snorting into the microphone, goddamn. Is this how you guys feel when I speak with my mouth full? You can't even say, oh, Sean Hannity doesn't burp into the mic anymore. At least with Chris Hayes, you can hear him sniffling into the microphone.
4 million uninsured Americans because Donald Trump decided one day that he wants to just make sure that kids are dying because they don't have access to insurance. That's what's not going to happen. And so if those senators think that we're having a shutdown because of me, they're free to enter my office and negotiate, because what we're not going to do is allow all of millions of people in this country to not be able to afford their insulin and their chemotherapy. So come strike a deal with me if that's what they really think is going on.
I know he was laughing.
There is, over the last week, it seems a lot of people, and I include myself among them, feel like a sort of rising sense of alarm about the aggressiveness of the sort of authoritarian aspirations of this government, essentially firing a U.S. attorney to replace him with a patsy who will indict a political enemy. the continued threat of using the military on American citizens, the ordering the troops to Portland and then backing up because it was 5-year-old B-roll. I don't know. Do you feel the same way over this last week or two? Does it feel like continuity to you? Are there conversations in your caucus about what this last week has meant?
I think there's two things that are happening at once, and this is something that's very important for people to understand. One, there absolutely is an unprecedented abuse of power, destruction of norms, erosion of our government and our democracy in order to prop up an authoritarian style of governance. That is happening. However, they are weaker than they look. And it is important that we remember that, because what they rely on is the impression of power, the perception of inevitability, in us giving up in advance to say, oh, what's going to happen if I stand up, etc. Nothing's going to happen. They rely on that perception of inevitability and power so that people comply in advance and acquiesce in advance and give up in advance. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump is at record levels of unpopularity in his tenure. The Republican House is at record levels of unpopularity. They are underwater across the board, and they know it.
You stole your whole flow, dog? Dog, why do you think I speak? Why do you think I say these things? I say these things so you repeat them. I hope that politicians will repeat them as well. It's free ball, baby. It's free money. And no, I don't think she got this from myself. I'm sure she also arrived at the same conclusions on her own.
And that is causing them to double down in public, but it is backfiring. That is why, whether it's a shutdown, whether it's all of this, they want us to blink first. And we have too much to save. Protecting people is too important a task for us to give up before anything even starts. So they may want to send people in, but these National Guardsmen do not want to be turned against their fellow Americans. We're seeing this here in Washington, D.C. It is an insult. Donald Trump is insulting the service members of this country by putting them on these silly tasks that they themselves do not want to be enforcing. And so we have to understand that standing up matters, that our voice matters, to not give in to the cynicism, because that is what they rely on in order to perpetuate this idea that they have total immunity from consequence. They will experience the consequences of this, but we have to be the consequence, which is why we have to stand tall right now alongside everyday Americans who want us to be standing up right now as well.
Final question for you is about a ruling that came from
FBI director cut ties with ADL. I know I'm going to get to it in a second.
Federal district judge.
Guys, by the way, that was a great speech. Obviously, it'd be rather silly of me to say that that's a bad speech, considering it's one that I have delivered as well in the past. But it's great.
Who's been on the bench for decades and was appointed by Ronald Reagan. It's in the case of Ramesa Ozturk and a few other individuals whose alleged their free speech, First Amendment rights as protected by the Constitution, were violated by ICE grabbing them because of things they said or wrote. And one of the things he gets to is the masking of ICE agents, which is something that we've seen in New York City, here in Chicago, and around. He says, the court has listened carefully to the reason given by Ozturk's captors for masking up. It rejects this testimony as disingenuous, squalid, and dishonorable. ICE goes mass for a single reason: to terrorize Americans into quiescence. A federal judge appointed by Reagan. In all our history, we've never tolerated an armed mass secret police. Carrying on in this fashion, ICE brings indelible obloquy to this administration and everyone who works.
Bro, I can't believe I'm saying this, but how the does a Reagan-era federal judge have a better grip on the situation than literally like 85% of the Democratic Party? Like, there are a handful of Democrats that have so eloquently presented what Donald Trump is doing in his attacks against the First Amendment with immigrant apprehensions as a mechanism of immigration enforcement. Actually, I'd go so far as to say that there's like 3 maximum. I wouldn't even say AOC has actually gone this aggressively on this issue. It's like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and that's kind of it. This is another thing that I have been screaming about from the rooftops over and over again. And I'm so glad that it took a Reagan judge to correctly point this out. Using normal people words to get normal people votes? Wait, what? Use normal people? Man, what the are you talking about? I'm not saying you should deploy the term indelible obliquity, or however the you say it. Are you stupid? I say it all the time. The Trump administration is cynically framing the conversation against Israel as one that is actually about anti-Semitism and combating anti-Semitism, and they're doing it from the mechanism of immigration enforcement. They're deporting people for talking about Israel. That is unconstitutional. That's unconstitutional. The Constitution protects migrants, both documented and undocumented alike, on U.S. soil. A lot of people misunderstand what the Constitution is supposed to do. A better way to frame this is as a restriction on the government. That's what the Constitution is doing. The Constitution is not there to restrict American citizens. It is there to restrict the government from regulating American citizens on certain issues. It protects every single person on U.S. soil unconditionally, documented citizens, documented non-citizens, and undocumented non-citizens alike. There's no confusion on this. And yet, for some weird reason, Democrats haven't been saying this. And the Trump administration, as I correctly pointed to early on, even before he actually became president, was going to open up the door to eroding First Amendment protections by starting off with migrants that they thought were more vulnerable because people wouldn't defend them, and also attack the issue starting with anti-Semitism, which has a lot of institutional persuasive power, because there are a lot of advocacy groups on the right and also on the left, on the liberal side especially, that have been tasked with quote-unquote combating anti-Semitism, which is, simply to stop people from saying about Israel. Yes, on the liberal side as well. Even on the leftist side. There's a reason why there are so many progressive, except for Palestine, leftists out there who claim to be leftists, but then, only until recently didn't realize that Israel was a fucking ethno-state doing an apartheid and a genocide. There's a reason. And that is because of the institutional capture of the Zionist lobby and Zionist advocacy groups. That's it. And the Trump administration was very well aware of this, and they realized that that would be the easiest way to open up the door to eroding the First Amendment. This is all laid out, as I have told you time and time again, in Project Esther, which is the First Amendment attack that the Heritage Foundation designed, starting with tackling anti-Semitism, which is like anti-Israel sentiment, of course, and then using immigration enforcement, where there's unilateral power in the hands of the state, only to then move on to anti-Christian behavior, for example, or anti-capitalism, as the Trump administration is now designing under new designations as violent rhetoric. Anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Christian rhetoric is now considered violent rhetoric. Where the f*** do you think that goes? A couple weeks ago I said, once Moist Critical talks about Israel, it's over. And it seems Moist Critical is, as a matter of fact, literally wearing the black t-shirt and talking about Israel, which is ironically what I said. Once he wears the black t-shirt and starts talking about Israel, it's over. As in, the American normie class has completely shifted their position on Israel and are no longer even afraid to speak about these things. Guys, it's time. There's a real tough situation going on.
Benjamin Netanyahu just openly stating in front of the whole world his plans on brainwashing because so many people are turning on Israel. So he was asked what he plans to do about it. And you know what? Since I'm just yapping, I'm just gonna go ahead and go on this topic now too.
I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel? What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside of the diaspora?
Christian influencers. Okay. He said, he talked about the woke right. He said, I call it the woke right. The woke right, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane.
Yeah, that's his strategy. A galaxy brain chess maneuver here. Call everyone that doesn't support Israel Nazis.
Insane that Charlie's going beast mode for once. I mean, it's not that insane. Dude, someone must have clipped it when I was memeing about how when Charlie comes out with the black t-shirt and starts talking about, guys, we have a serious problem with Israel. That's when you know we've arrived at the normie position. Dude, I'm gonna keep it very real with you. There is no world where someone like Charlie would ever in a million years say anything about Israel. You guys are straight up living in a totally alternative reality if you think a person that people call a fence sitter professionally, okay, his own personal positions on Israel are irrelevant. I'm saying, like, as far as coming out and saying anything about Israel because of how terrified most people have been to say anything about Israel at all, anything for Israel, anything to say about Israel at all, because for many people, for content creators, for people with jobs, they are terrified of saying anything about Israel that's negative, because automatically you are public enemy number one, you're losing your job, you're going to be tarred and feathered, you're going to be called the anti-Semitic Nazi for the rest of your life. This means it's no longer the case. This means that normies have also recognized that there isn't a tremendous amount of social pressure that can be applied if you come out and you're like, what the fuck are we doing here? This is completely unacceptable. He is proving exactly what I've been saying for months, that Israel's censorship regime especially is very frustrating for regular Americans who might not personally give it what's going on there. Not to say that Charlie doesn't, right? I'm using Moist Critical here as a beacon. I'm using him as a way to tell you where, like, societal attitude is at. Yeah, a canary in the coal mine, a litmus test, an indicator, okay? Most people either don't know anything about Palestine or Israel and never really cared, or they had a positive opinion on Israel until October 7th, right? And most people saw what Israel did after October 7th and at times tuned in and thought, wow, that's really oh well, life goes on. I'm talking about, like, normal people, not you guys. This community is obviously unique. We are uniquely tuned in to what the Israel's been up to every single day, okay? For the average person, for your coworkers, they are not as tuned in. But this doesn't mean that they're oblivious. They are aware of what Israel's doing. Some people know what Israel's doing and think, well, you know, they're brown guys. Oh well, it's really sad. Maybe they should stop. But they're just, you know, brown children being slaughtered. And they just move on with their lives. But if there's one thing that pisses off Americans, if there's one thing that pisses off your coworkers, it's the fact that they see that, they don't like it, they're fearful to say anything about it, and they see others saying something about it that reflects their values on the issue, and they get censored, or they get deplatformed, or they get yelled at endlessly by some of the most arrogant genocide dares you have ever encountered, and they don't like that. They especially don't like this. So even if there's an American out there who doesn't like what Israel is doing, but doesn't care enough to go out and protest, and is not fully aware of all of the awfulness, all of the bloodshed that Israel's committed, they especially don't like being censored. They don't like the fact that there are unlimited tax dollars going there, and they don't like the arrogance and entitlement demonstrated by this supposed client state, and they don't like that they are being censored for exhibiting any sort of discontent. We shall call this the Kimmel effect. That's a good take. Exactly. Americans might not be totally tuned into all the awful that Trump is doing right now at the domestic level. When he came out and was like, Jimmy Kimmel, for this, like, tepid statement about Charlie Kirk, deserves to be barred from speaking on television, and the FCC should, like, revoke the television license, all of a sudden everyone goes, what the f do you mean? Get the f out of here. And that's precisely what's taking place here. Poll after poll is showing that more and more Americans are becoming aware of the reality, or acknowledging the reality, that Israel is committing a genocide. it's crazy to me that it's still 39% because that's precisely what this is, right? Wait, that's American. Wait, no, hold on. That's Jews. That's American Jews, brother. No, the percentage of Americans that say Israel's committing a genocide against Palestinians in Gaza is far higher than that. This is American Jews. Most American Jews say Israel's committed war crimes against Palestinians. About 4 in 10 say Israel's committed genocide. That's insane. That's huge. But yeah, poll after poll has shown that Americans are broadly aware of Israel's genocide, and pretty much every American you've ever encountered wants to reduce support for Israel. Pretty much every single American you've ever encountered wants an arms embargo. Pretty much every single American you can encounter says it's a genocide. It's gone. It's done. It's over. Do you understand? 65% want sanctions. Oh, this is the Democrats. Okay, I was going to say, this is like, the percentages seem far too high for all Americans. But regardless, overwhelming numbers also recognize that Israel is committing a genocide. Majority of Americans also want to push for sanctions on Israel, okay, not just Democrats. Because when you look at independents, their numbers are a little bit lower than the Democrats, and then Republicans are pro-Israel, but it doesn't matter, right? Because Republicans alone don't make up for Israel support. Like, with the exception of evangelical Zionists and Jewish Zionists, which also are no longer as pro-Israel as they used to be, okay? With the exception of evangelicals and Jews, most of the United States of America are no longer pro-Israel. And that happened over 2 years. You have to measure that against how pro-Israel Americans used to be. It is so over. And it's only going to get worse from here on out for Israel as far as like approval ratings go. Americans are no longer afraid of even coming out as being anti-Israel. Because like in the past, many Americans would shy away from saying the truth. Many Americans would shy away from saying the truth because they were worried. Because nobody wants to be yelled at and be called an anti-Semite, okay? Especially because like when you get called an anti-Semite, especially by like these advocacy groups that do have a tremendous, or did have a tremendous amount of institutional motion, your career is over, okay? This goes even beyond like people's distaste for speaking on political issues. And now it's like, it's no longer the Canary Mission doxing random like Palestinian nurses and because they can't dox every single person, you know what I mean? So they don't have that same environment of censorious fear, and it doesn't hit anymore.
And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. And the most important ones are social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok. TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it's can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one? That's the most important. X. That's very good. And, you know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now.
Spoiler warning for those without thinking caps on. Censorship. He's talking about censorship. Damn to free speech. Benjamin Netanyahu's got other ideas. It's something he's talked about plenty in the past. He's not exactly shy with it. He's very loosey-goosey with the censorship topic, and he's talking about it again. He recognizes how everyone sharing videos and information about the atrocities and all the slaughter of the Palestinians at the hands of the IDF is making people turn on Israel. So now genocidal freak is going up to Elon Musk. Oh, Mr. Musk, can we do something about like all these pesky voices sharing all of this? It's censorship. Super weird, by the way, how a foreign nation seems to have so much pull over things happening in our homeland. Why can Netanyahu come out with his full ass on display, talking about like how algorithms on the platforms here need to cater to him, and also he should be talking to Elon about Twitter so they can do something together in regards to like the people not liking Israel anymore and what they're having access to. Why is that? Like that shouldn't be allowed, right? Like what the? This guy gets to come in and like completely wash our fucking freedom of speech in order to fit his censorship agenda? Cool. How about no? Goober? Like, come on.
Damn, bro, I can't believe I'm hearing Moist Critical. My eyes, my ears. I can't believe I'm seeing and hearing Moist Critical wearing the black shirt, literally calling Benjamin Netanyahu the G word, goober, okay? That is crazy. How do we get here, folks? The G-word, man. Incredible things are happening. We're finally here. I don't know anything about him. What's the significance of the black shirt? I mean, that's mostly a meme. Charlie doesn't normally do a lot of politics. Like he's a liberal for sure, right? In the past, like he's come out and had some interesting takes that I definitely consider liberal, but like he deliberately stays out of trouble, I guess, if that makes sense. He tries to actively not talk about this stuff. For him to come out and like make a statement is indicative of the change in times. It means that there aren't like tremendous repercussions for this sort of thing. He is demonstrative of an attitude shift. It means that like this position is no longer, this is an inoffensive position. It's like people actually no longer feel fearful to reveal this. And he has, in the past he stood up for trans people and a lot of people yelled at him for it. Like this means that like the average American cop and divorced dad also has a similar perspective. Do you understand? Like there's cops that watch Moist Critical. There's divorced dads that watch Moist Critical. Your co-workers watch Moist Critical, okay, in our age group.
How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles? I want you to look at what happened when the National Guard went to D.C.
Quite the Freudian slip. And as I said, there's no way he meant to say that. But he never corrects it or anything. No one points it out. And what he's talking about didn't pertain to pedophiles at all. His crime statistics were robbery, homicide, and rape. 2 out of 3 of those he covered previously. The last one, robbery, that doesn't relate to stopping attacking pedophiles. Like, those two don't connect. You can't put the square piece into the circle hole on that one. And I saw people saying that it was intellectually dishonest to paint it as anything other than just like an embarrassing flub. Which is fair enough, I suppose, because I'm not trying to make the claim that this is him fully admitting to things and he's going full mask off. Ted Cruz did notably reject the release of the Epstein files. Like, from all available information, it seems he has been against the release of the Epstein files, judging from his votes in regards to it. So I did pose that here's a little food for thought. There may be a little something there, possibly, but overall, the video, I was just taking the piss out of it. That's really it. But that was somehow incendiary and made people mad about, like, to portray in clearly having a flub that...
Once again, that is indicative of his audience's attitude, right? Even when he's, like, gently making fun of Ted Cruz for a very obvious gaffe, while tying it back to the Epstein stuff, like, there are people in his audience that get mad at that, okay? So there's obviously, like, right-wingers in his audience as well. Not his entire audience, but that is, once again, where Charlie is at and what he represents for someone like myself.
I'm going to harp on Ted Cruz for a moment, because I just don't understand the glaze. I don't know how he has hog riders. I do not get the pedophiles that will defend him tooth and nail. When he himself has said that the reason he got into Congress 13 years ago is to defend the interests of Israel.
I came into Congress
13
years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate. I've worked every day to do that.
So you are an American politician whose sole purpose for being here is to defend the interests of a foreign nation here, domestically. I just don't know how that's not treasonous. I'm just going to say, I don't get how that is not just like full-blown treason. I saw quite a few takes when it came out about Israel paying influencers for like positive PR and stuff, and people were tossing the word treason around in regards to that. This is that times 50. I don't know how this one gets a pass. I don't get how that gets a pass. He is supposed to represent the state of Texas. You would think as an American...
I told you, dude. Wait till Charlie hears about BDS laws, dude. Any self-respecting American who hears about the treacherous, nefarious ways in which Israel advocacy groups have been able to dominate American political discourse in this fashion, they're never going to look at that the same way ever again. 38 states where you have to sign a loyalty pledge to the state of Israel to retain a job. In no way.
Again, I'm not the most politically savvy guy on the planet. I'm a Neanderthal. I get that. I am a Cro-Magnon man when it comes to this. But I just don't understand. I cannot wrap my head around how people will support that. I don't get it.
By the way, I knew this was going to inevitably happen, which is why I cannot believe how much the Democrats have failed on this issue and how much they haven't led on this issue. If you couldn't see the writing on the wall. First of all, first and foremost, you should have obviously been against it due to the immoral nature. Like, you should, if you're a human being, you should be anti-genocide. But the fact that you wouldn't even argue against Israel, you wouldn't argue against decoupling from Israel, knowing that this was going to be a major, world-defining, incredibly consequential political issue at the domestic level. God damn, dude. Retire. Retire if you can't see that. If I can see that, and I'm a dumb Twitch streamer, you should be able to see that too. You shouldn't even need the tide shift to take place to actually, change your position on it, regardless if you're a politician. Leaked email reveals communication between a company leading the TikTok purchase and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. We believe that we have to embed the love and respect for Israel in the American culture, wrote the then Oracle CEO Safra Katz in 2015. And Will Menaker has a take on it. It says, no matter how much money they spend on this or how many media platforms they buy out for this express purpose, I can state with total confidence that no one in this country under the age of 50 will ever love or respect Israel again, and nothing is changing that. It's over. This is why I keep saying, toothpaste out of the tube. This is why I keep repeating over and over again that today is the day that Israel will be the most popular it ever will be for the rest of time. Tomorrow, Israel will be less popular than it is today. And the day after that, Israel will be even less popular than it is today. This will never turn around for Israel. It's over. They've lost the next generation. Completely lost it. And what they also fail to comprehend is that all of this censorship, all of this media manipulation is only pissing people off further. That's why you got like Charlie coming out and attacking Israel from the perspective of and changing, like, or openly admitting that they are trying to pay people to advocate for Israel as it is doing a genocide. It's out in the open. That's why I don't get too mad at people when they take that first step and they recognize, like, Israel is the wrong party here and not the wronged party here. All it takes is time from that point on. Most people don't just turn around and go, yeah, Israel's doing a genocide, but. They might say that today, but they're not going to say that tomorrow, chat. You always have to be as kind as you possibly can to people who have demonstrated that genuine change of heart, or people who were silent before who are speaking out now. Do you understand? I know you want to feel like you were there all along and you want some recognition for it. This is a selfish need. Let go of that. Imagine if I did that to you when you came in here on October 7th and you told me, like, Hassan, you're Hamas lover, you love terrorism, how dare you speak out against the Jewish state. I didn't do that, did I? I was aware of all that Israel had done leading up to that point, but I didn't do that. Think about your own experience over the last 2 years and how you arrived at this conclusion. The journey that you took to arrive at this conclusion, to arrive at the truth. Understand that a similar process will take place for a lot of the people who are, even now, after 23 months. I'm telling you, once people are made aware, once they take that leap, once they actually go against what they have been preconditioned into believing, that Israel is this moral party, Israel is this Western aligned nation, and its enemies are barbaric monsters. Once they, like, take that leap to recognize the truth for the first time, where they go, maybe Israel is not the moral nation I thought it was. There's no going back after that, okay? After that, you just have to sit back and wait. All it takes is time.
By the way, and the camera's always on. You don't turn it on and off. And by the way, when you turn it on, you can't turn it on. You got to go to the bathroom. Oracle, I need 2 minutes to take a bathroom break, and we'll turn it off. The truth is, We don't really turn it off. What we do is we record it so no one can see it, but no one can get into that recording without a court order.
It's much easier to make an anti-Semitic argument that Americans will respond positively to than it is to describe to them principled anti-Zionism from the framework of anti-imperialism, from the framework of anti-fascism. It's like, what can I say when you got Larry Ellison, who literally is a demonic figure himself, okay? Major IDF fan, major fan of Israel, the second richest person on the planet, Donald Trump's shadow, basically, guy who is a CIA cutout, purchasing TikTok from China with the express purpose of making it more pro-Israel. You see that and you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to think? Like, the average American is gonna look at that and be like, it's happening in front of my eyes. Like, what the yeah, and then you got Barry Weiss, who's now going to be the editor-in-chief of CBS. Look at
Oh
this.
my
Like,
God.
look, this is at the Friends of the IDF Gala in Beverly Hills, of course. Israel-aligned billionaire sees TikTok in battle for U.S. narrative control. The White House announced that the forced sale of TikTok will be finalized this week. The new ownership led by Larry Ellison, the largest individual donor to the IDF, will take control of the U.S. user data and the algorithm, which the White House says will be retrained. Ellison, who made his fortune developing Oracle, a database system originally built for the CIA, already controls CBS, Paramount, MTV, Comedy Central, Showtime, Nickelodeon, which makes kids shows, as well as Channel 10 in Australia and Channel 5 in the UK. Ellison is also expected to finalize control over Warner Bros. Discovery, including CNN, HBO, and the Discovery Channel before the end of 2025. Even before the forced sale is finalized, censorship of TikTok content critical of Israel, including the deal itself, has reached extreme levels as the platform moves to align with its prospective new owners. Fox, a Murdoch asset, is also seeking to join the Ellison consortium, a move that could enable cross-promotion between Fox and TikTok, further tightening the Israeli-aligned information bubble. Disapproval of what Israel is doing in Gaza has risen to 60% of the U.S. population, nearly double the approval rate of 32%. The U.S. still has over 3 years of Trump left. Israeli-aligned Jewish billionaires control OpenAI, Google, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Palantir, CBS, HBO, most of Condé Nast, Reddit, Vogue, The New Yorker, Wired, GQ, Vanity Fair, as well as numerous Hollywood studios, regional papers, and radio stations. Europe, meanwhile, remains largely absent, offering little real competition in the information space. Its one real success story, Telegram, which it managed to comprehensively alienate after France arrested its founder, supposedly for not handing over enough user data. Will the EU and the other US allies align with the Israelified TikTok algorithm or attempt to create a politicized alternative of their own? Decentralized alternatives that keep the rest of it doesn't matter. Here is Larry Ellison in his own words, okay? Larry Ellison here is at the Friend of the IDF Gala in Beverly Hills. Here's what he had to say. Tell us, what is your connection to Israel?
Well, the renewal of the Jewish state is something that I think touches all of us. For 2,000 years, we were a stateless people. And now we have a country of our own, defended by all the brave men and women of the IDF. So anything we can do to support them, who devote their lives for preserving the state of Israel, keeping the people safe, and allowing our state to continue in very sometimes in very, very difficult situations.
This loser doesn't even live in Israel. Of course, bro. These motherfuckers don't give a about Israel, brother. What are you talking about? Like, they care about Israel in the sense that, like, it's an opportunity to make money.
I have been to Israel. I have been to the border. I have spent time with the people who govern the state of Israel, and I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
You are an high-tech person. What do you think about this?
You are an high-tech person.
High-tech phenomenon.
Oh well, after Silicon Valley, there's an area in Herzliya is probably got more startups than any other place other than Silicon Valley in Northern California. So we've actually acquired a number of Israeli companies. We have 2 CEOs at Oracle. One's name is Safra Katz, and she was born in Israel. So again, we love the country of Israel, and we'll do everything we can to support the country of Israel.
Recently hear that many people criticizing Israel, especially after the Gaza operation. How do you feel someone just saying we love Israel?
Well, again, it's a difficult situation, isn't it? To conduct military operations around civilians is very difficult, and of course, there were tragedies, and civilians were hurt. That's a terrible thing. But one thing we know for certain that the Israeli army did everything they could to minimize civilian casualties. In that regard, they've done a much better job than a lot of other armies all over the world throughout history.
He kind of talks like Elon, bro. These guys are all the same. They all literally, for some reason, I don't know if it's they go to the same plastic surgeons or something, like they all turn into lizard people, bro. Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, they get to a certain point and they're just like, I don't know. I don't know if it's the same type of autism. Peter Thiel, another great example of this. You hear them speak and you're like, what? How? I look at guys like this and I see the exact same thing that I see with that famous televangelist, I forget his name, the one that was standing on top of his car when the journalist is asking him about getting a private jet, and he's like, they're demonic entities, or like Kenneth Copeland, like they just look demonic. They all have this like demonic look to them. I think it might be a white gay liberal man thing. Okay, but Elon Musk isn't gay as far as we know. And neither is Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is the #1 white guy. The phrase lizard people is gonna get you in trouble. It's a real anti-globalist, anti-Semite term. No, man. It also means like sociopathic billionaire elite, okay? Half of the billionaires I just talked about aren't Jewish either. Calm down. No. I'm not talking about David Icke. Elon is the #1 ex-wife guy. Okay, fair. These dudes always come across like they're aliens that are wearing like a human skin suit, and they're trying to play the role of like a human. They're trying to go through the motions of like what a human would sound like and would look like. Also, here's Larry Ellison. Ron Prozor is an Israeli ambassador, outright interferes in American domestic politics, but since it isn't Russia or China, nobody will care. So this is a new thing that came out. I forget who it was, but I think like someone hacked Larry Ellison's emails, okay, and revealed a treasure trove of emails. Someone hacked Jeffrey Epstein's Yahoo email earlier as well, and this is yet another hack. New from Dropsite, Larry Ellison vetted Marco Rubio for fealty to Israel. Hacked emails revealed. The billionaire Oracle founder is on track to take control over the American media. In this article, you find out that he is literally talking. He's literally talking to like the permanent Israeli ambassador to the UN, vetting Marco Rubio. As the nation's top diplomat, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also played a role in the TikTok talks that steered the company towards Ellison after playing a lead role as a senator demonizing the app. He was also closely involved in the rollout of Trump's plan for Gaza's future, the enclave to Blair. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, tasked the Blair Institute in the spring with coming up with a post-war plan for Gaza, which was recently completed. Also, Larry Ellison, at the time, gave a major donation to Marco Rubio, and people were confused by it. They were like, why? Why did Larry Ellison, who we thought previously was woke, why did he give so much money to Marco Rubio? And they were like, oh, maybe it's because he thinks Marco Rubio will be like a more softer approach to Trumpian politics or something. No, it turns out he literally had a lunch with him and straight up talked to him about his loyalty to Israel. And Marco Rubio was like, of course I'll be loyal. Straight up, in the emails, he openly says it, by the way. The Israeli ambassador in the email says, did you vet him for his loyalty to Israel? Like, it literally comes across like a David Duke conspiracy. You have the UN ambassador to Israel talking to Larry Ellison, CIA's very own Larry Ellison, multi-billionaire, and they're talking about how loyal Marco Rubio will be to Israel. Here it is, Ron Prozor to Larry Ellison. Larry, hi, please send me his speech. Thanks. Okay, at the time, Rubio was seen as a strong challenger in the GOP presidential field, but that would ultimately include underdog candidate Donald Trump. Emails show the Israeli diplomat and Ellison arranging to meet with one another, with Prozor soliciting Ellison's views on Rubio as a potential candidate who would advocate on behalf of Israel. On April 26, Prozor sent Ellison an email titled Rubio's Speech, asking the Oracle founder and CTO to send him a copy of the speech from the then candidate. The emails don't specify which speech, but Rubio kicked off his campaign a week earlier with a speech that criticized Obama administration's hostility to Israel. The next day, the two traded messages indicating that Prozor and Ellison had dinner together, and that Ellison would soon be meeting with Rubio directly. I had a great time too, Ron. I'm looking forward to the next time, Ellison said, adding, P.S. I'll tell you how dinner goes with Senator Rubio. Larry, hi. I really enjoyed spending the afternoon and evening with you. Time flies with you. Thank you. Big hug, Ron. On April 30th, Prozor sent another message to Ellison to follow up, sharing his phone number and thanking him again for the evening they spent together. How was the conversation with Marco Rubio? Did he pass your scrutiny? Do you have a chance to talk about Israel? Would love to chat. A few hours later, Ellison responded in the affirmative. Hi, Ron. Great meeting with Marco Rubio. I set him up to meet with Tony Blair, adding, Marco will be a great friend to Israel. Follow-up email exchange between Prosor and Ellison in April 2015 discussing previous meeting. A month later, Ellison, who had backed Mitt Romney in 2012, hosted a fundraiser for Rubio at his mansion in Woodside, California. That would be only the beginning of a broader range of support that the tech billionaire would offer in attempting to bolster Rubio's campaign. Over the course of the 2015-2016 primary, Ellison plowed $5 million in the Conservative Solutions Super PAC, which supported Rubio, who, as Ellison privately hoped, advocated vocally for Israel throughout the course of his presidential bid and beyond. Ellison's support for Rubio perplexed some political observers at the time. The CEO of the political Kraut PAC, known as Kraut Blue, Stephen Hilton, told the San Francisco Chronicle that he had found it interesting that Ellison, who was not then well known as a supporter of right-wing causes, should support a candidate as conservative as Marco Rubio, speculating that it could reflect Rubio's past effort to implement immigration reform, a crucial issue for Silicon Valley leaders like Ellison. It was because of Israel. Also, Tony Blair is really important here as well. Ellison, who was vetting Marco Rubio at the behest of the Israeli state, by the way, American citizen Larry Ellison, by the way, also has given or pledged more than $350 million to Tony Blair's world-changing project, making him the largest donor and helping it expand around the globe. Do you now understand why Tony Blair is going to be in charge of Gaza? Do you understand how this kind of stuff happens? Oracle and TBI's connections are not just rhetorical. By 2023, joint retreats have become commonplace. Tony Blair Institute and Oracle. At the Institute's headquarters of the One Bartholomew Place in London, the teams would convene in the basement with executives from Oracle. Senior TBI employees have been hosted at Oracle's headquarters in Austin. It's hard to get across how deeply connected the two organizations are, a former TBI staffer said. The meetings were like they're part of the same organization. In other words, if the relationship persists, Ellison and Oracle are positioned to take a lead role in developing Gaza. We don't have to guess what type of society Ellison would hope to usher in. On an investor call last year, Ellison said that, this is the video I must show you. Do you guys have the civilization will be on its best behavior video? You know how every racist can't stop themselves from like openly saying some racist? Every Nazi at some point will eventually deny the Holocaust or something because they can't help themselves, like they have to say it. Every billionaire always has a quiet part out loud moment, and you hear that and it just exists in your mind permanently, and you can never ever see them the same ever again. When you hear what I'm about to show you, you will never forget it. And I've shown this video before on the broadcast, and that was when I was like, this is a dangerous guy. Here's Larry Ellison talking at an Oracle Funder Summit, right? I think it was like an investment conference for Oracle, talking about mass surveillance and AI.
Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, by the way, and the camera's always on. You don't turn it on and off. And by the way, when you turn it on, you can't turn it on. You got to go to the bathroom. Oracle, I need 2 minutes to take a bathroom break, and we'll turn it off. The truth is, we don't really turn it off. What we do is we record it so no one can see it, but no one can get into that recording without a court order.
The longer one is better than this, because the bathroom side is like crazy, and it shows the depths of his insanity, but like, I don't like this video. There's a longer one where he describes why he thinks this actually leads to a perfect society, okay? And it is completely psychotic.
Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior. Because
isn't this awesome? Straight Arrow News showing Larry Ellison predicts AI-powered surveillance is in our future. Straight Arrow News, also owned by like a right-wing billionaire guy. Yeah, this is the same clip here.
We're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
let's do the
Most.
let's do the Ross Douthat debate. The original title for this video was different. I forget what it was, but now they changed it. There's an accompanying New York Times piece with this as well. For those of you who don't know, Ross Douthat, of course, is a right-winger. He's a conservative, but he's supposed to be like, and he's not even like an anti-Trump conservative, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he's like, at least like either Trump agnostic or pro-Trump. I can't remember now. Did you request that they change it? No, I didn't. They do that all the time. They will come out with like a crazy title, and then people will get mad at them, and then they'll change it. They did that with the style section piece. Remember, MAGA body. Oh yeah, the original title was in my How radical is Hassan Piker? Twitch starts flirtation with violence. Meet the online star who likes to play with fire. I knew that it was going to be a contentious conversation, but it was going to be a polite one overall. And I hope that I was able to get some of the positions that I have across in a somewhat hostile, somewhat contentious, but very large platform. Because the New York Times, this YouTube video won't do like crazy numbers or whatever, and that doesn't matter. But the New York Times and interviews like this do reach a lot of power brokers, a lot of people who are in positions of power. So let's take a look. I think conservatives have a really great way of designing a narrative that makes sense to as broad of an audience as possible.
Everyone is in the business of crafting media narratives, right?
Yes.
And the
I wish
media,
Democrats were a little bit better at it, to be fair.
Hassan Piker has no filter, or at least that's the generous way to describe his marathon streaming broadcasts.
Fascists need to go to prison permanently. Sig Heiling has one use. You're a Nazi. If Donald Trump is going somewhere, it is certainly not heaven. Israel is an illegal entity, okay?
Which cover everything from the war in Gaza.
It's crazy to me that we treat Israel like this unstoppable force, like they are not human beings that are making these decisions to bomb schools, mosques, hospitals.
To his fitness regimen.
Are you on creatine? Yes, I love creatine. Love creatine.
He's a self-proclaimed Marxist and anti-imperialist.
We here in the United States of America live under the comfort of being a part of the labor aristocracy.
Who's been hopefully called the less answer to Joe Rogan, and who's compared himself to Rush Limbaugh. And he keeps getting suspended from his platform, Twitch, for language that he calls hyperbolic and other people call incitement.
Is this person calling for the death of a U.S. senator? Of course not. Hello? If you're watching this, that means I just got banned.
Is he the future of the left? Or is he just another example of how living on the internet drives everyone insane? Hassan Piker, welcome to interesting times.
We are living in some interesting times, considering that it is you, Ross Douthat, who is interviewing me for the New York Times.
Who
I feel
else?
like that's
Who
very
else?
interesting.
Who else would it be? Man, this is a show. This is a place for the interesting perspectives of our moment.
Did you hear this
And-
intro?
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear this intro. It's new.
I think that's what you represent, and we're gonna get into that. We're gonna talk about the Hassan Piker worldview. We're gonna talk about debates about political violence. But I thought we should start because I know what you do. I'm very tech savvy, obviously. I'm very online. I understand the internet, but there may be some listeners and viewers who don't know what a Twitch streamer is. So I want you to tell me what a Twitch streamer is.
Yeah, Twitch streamers broadly, for the most part, play video games. I'm a little bit unique to the space because I cover politics. I do news and political commentary for the most part. I do lifestyle stuff as well, and I do the regular things that Twitch streamers do on the side, but that's secondary. Twitch is basically a live streaming platform. So for the boomers that read the New York Times, I would say it's like YouTube, but it's always live. It's like just live stream YouTube. That's it.
Right. So when I make a podcast, I come into this beautiful, wonderful studio and I sit down and it's like a self-contained thing, but then it's edited and cut up and, turned into the product, right? But when you sit down, you go for 7 hours? Like what?
If you ask my audience now, they'll say half day Hossie, and they'll say 7 hours. which is a joke. But yeah, I used to do it for 8 to 10 hours every day, but
You've cut back.
I'm 34 now.
Yeah.
So I lowered it to 7.
Okay, and you're doing it after we record this, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's
And I go 7 days a week as well.
every Sunday to
through
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think if someone, they can see you right now with the mic and the background, right? But if someone who wasn't familiar with this sort of dropped into the stream, they'd see other stuff on screen, right?
Yeah.
So what would they see? What do you share the screen with?
Normally, at any given moment, if you tune in, you can either see me full screen like this, just doing direct-to-camera commentary, or most likely reading an article, criticizing it piece by piece, and also sometimes I offer commentary over media from TV channels as well, and it's a broad spectrum of political ideology.
And you're also talking to people who are talking to you, though, right?
So there are tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of concurrent live viewers
Right.
that are in my chat. So we broadly call it chat. They're on the side of the screen, you can see it as well. It's just constantly going up and down like it's the Matrix, right? Because it's just a constant flow of thoughts. And I don't know exactly how I figured this out. Maybe it's my ADHD, but I have been able to somehow offer commentary that people consider compelling,
Right.
while simultaneously
Responding
browsing through.
And you're responding. Somebody
Yes.
writes a
Why
Why is he infantilizing you? No. This part is actually pretty good. So what he's doing here for like the first, I would say like 15 minutes to 20 minutes, is explaining what I do to a media executive that's like 60 years old. Because you have to remember, like for you, this is every day. Of course you know what the I do. But for a person that reads the New York Times and is familiar with Ross Douthat, that person has no clue what the I do. They don't know what Twitch is. They don't know anything. And the reason why he's actually giving this backstory, and it's the right thing to do for the record, but the reason why he's giving this backstory here is because he's going to then at least give me like an honest shake. Because he's going to obviously criticize me, but he wants to make sure that it is contextually appropriate. Because if he just like came into it and said, "You've said this and you've said that," then we would have to go back and forth on like, well, it's a long, the medium requires you to talk endlessly for 7 hours with like constant feedback, and a lot gets lost in the sauce, a lot gets lost in the messaging, all this stuff. Instead of doing that, he's basically explaining to people exactly what this is. But he's also belittling a little bit. No, I don't even think so. I think that's just the tone he takes. Because the reality of the matter is, if Ross Douthat wanted to belittle someone like myself, he just wouldn't do this at all. He would just write an article. I think what he wanted to do instead was not to belittle me, but to present me as somewhat of a dangerous figure in American politics. Because I do think he considers me to be somewhat of a dangerous figure in American politics. The belittling side of it comes from like, oh, well, you live in a nice mansion, like you don't want violent, revolutionary violence to come down your doorstep, like not understanding that like, yeah, I don't want that in general. Like I understand that violence is a constant presence in politics, but like my advocacy revolves around reform. Anyway, let's continue.
That's stupid, Hassan, because of this, and you're like, no, Gremlin user 47. That's not brilliant. You say something, right?
Well, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would say that.
No.
But sometimes it's complementary information that's coming in, so it's almost like a hive mind that can quickly extract and find information all around the internet. And sometimes it's contentious, where people come in and they're right-wingers, or they come in and they're liberals who disagree with me on something, and they'll be like, "This is wrong. Here is why you're wrong." And then there's like a very quick, spirited debate, and sometimes it can even get a little heated. So the way I've always described what I do is that I'm basically like Rush Limbaugh, but for Zoomers. So it's almost like AM radio in the spirit of like conservative commentary, but obviously I think I have a higher standard for the veracity of the information that I'm looking at, because a big part of what I do, I think, especially in this age on the internet, is sift through the misinformation information. So a big part of what I do is also just like going through all of that and in real time, and also trying to instill some sense of media literacy in the audience. So I explain it as I'm holding your hand through the journey of reading the news.
Do you take a bathroom break? Like, what's your?
I do.
How many
I do.
bathroom breaks do you take?
I don't know, but
Okay.
my there are some people in the community that have timed my bathroom breaks,
Okay.
and I think
Okay.
so.
What
it
about
can range
food?
anywhere from
I don't even know how long the bathroom breaks are actually.
the bath.
Yo, what up? How's it going? Cool. Oh, just wrapping up stream here in a couple minutes. Yeah. Not now, but you know, the usual people kind of checking in, dipping out. Yeah, when I can do it on maintain it on a regular schedule and like regularly announce that I'm doing it and not just like leave people in the lurch a bunch. Because I don't want to like advertise that I'm doing this and everything and then disappear for a while every time I need to and just be really inconsistent. Oh, you're good. The sound isolation in your car is great. Because I can hear your blinker and you, but I can't hear anything from anywhere else. Yeah. Dang. It was good. I knocked the stuff off my list I needed to do. We can replace the link part whenever you get home for that all region thing. And I looked in. I think that the conflict of interest survey thing. I was like, this seems weird. This actually seems like a phishing attempt. So I didn't do that, but I did do the IT security training. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I just couldn't remember the last time I did it, but I was like, I feel like I already did that, and I feel like that's just a form you fill out, and it's not specified to you. And this email is not from this person at angelo.edu, so... Yeah. I'm like, report phishing attempt. If that was a real thing, then y'all need to structure it differently because it looks like a phishing attempt. I don't blame you. In October, there's so much stuff all the time. Yeah. Like, there's a part of that that is cool, but also ain't no way anybody is making it to everything. Yeah. What do you need to do? Okay, excellent start. Yeah. Okay, well, at least that's just like input kind of work. You're good at that. Ugh. Huh. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, hell yeah. And not in like a weird key or anything. I have to put in accidentals all over the place. Nice. Oh. Could be. There's a weird, like, specific niche car stuff, just culture in San Angelo. Mm. Yeah, it was. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds right. Oh, sorry. Bit of a yawn. Jambalaya? Cool. Yeah. I got 5 of them. Because we eat a lot of tofu. It's always good to just have a block we can make food out of. Well, I mean, it's already food, but a meal. Yeah, every time I've heard somebody complain about tofu or not liking it, I'll be like, did you do anything to it? Did you sauce it? Spice it? Squeeze it? How did you mess this up so bad? Yeah. It's like, y'all, it's bean curd. It's just gonna taste like bean curd unless you do something to it. Yeah. Like, is it an incredible vehicle for things? 100%. Great source of protein? Absolutely. An acceptable texture or flavor on its own, untreated? No. Mm-hmm. Gertie. Oh, is that a new one? Picking up a fair amount of December gigs already. Nice. Is it one you've done before, or is it a new one? Oh, okay. Nice. In town. Easy peasy. Yeah, I can hear him out there. The door is open, by the way, for you. Do you want me to, like, come over there and let the dogs see you? Let me know when you're getting close to the steps, and I'll come do that. I do enjoy watching them get excited.